Hiya, Lottie here. Welcome back and Happy New Year. I hope you all have had a wonderful New Year and a wonderful Christmas and a great start to 2024. Sorry for the lack of uploads. It was a very hectic December and then a very hectic January, which led into February, and it's just been, it's been a time of it. But I am finally back and hopefully on track to putting out consistent videos again, better than last year, I certainly hope. I know I was a bit all over the place last year, but I am certainly hoping that that will not be the case this year. And I'm actually going to be starting a bullet journal to kind of help me do everything that I need to do in a timely manner. So I decided to make myself a bullet journal, and then I actually was like, well, why don't I just make some for the shop? So this is the A6 size bullet journal that I've made, or that I'm currently in the process of making. I've only made 2 so far. Well, I made 3 because I made 1 for myself, but I've still got 2 left to make, and I've got everything sitting here, and I thought we could make them together. I do have a A5 coming as well, however it will be a fabric covered journal. And I'm still waiting on the fabric. So far it's just the A6 bullet journals, and they are dotted. I haven't counted the dots yet, so I'm not sure how many are in each page, but you get a lot. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 signatures of 10 sheets of paper each, so that is what, I'll need to check that, but I'm trying to do the math in my head and it's too early. I've got my tea here in my big ass cup. And I thought we could just get started. So this is the cover I've designed, and I love the quote that I came up with, if I do say so myself. And this is just a beautiful image of books here, and then I've used a vintage wallpaper for the background, and obviously it has my handmade by L.A.Treasures on the back, and I have also embossed the top back bookend page, and I've done that with my embossing stamp. You won't be able to see it on camera, but it is very faint, but it is there to say that it was made by myself. So they all have these beautiful metal book corners, and I just think these are so pretty, these ones. They all have a sort of bronze ribbon bookmark inside as well, and then they all have the elastic closure. So here are the 2 that I've made so far. Well, I've got another one here off to the side. This is the one that I made for myself, and I actually was planning on making one for myself regardless, but I made a boo-boo and I ripped right at the corner here with my bone folder. The glue was still wet and I was just too impatient. So I was like, well, that one's mine then. And we will fill this out together in probably the next video, depending how long this video is, if it goes into 2 parts. But in a video after this one, we will fill in my bullet journal together as well. So I've already got everything pre-cut and folded. So these are the spines, and I just used the back of a designer paper pad, like the big 12 by 12 paper pads to do the spine, and I just double layered them. So I cut 2 pieces and just glued them in place with the 3-in-1, and then I have actual book board for the actual covers. But obviously you don't need this. You can glue cereal boxes together to get your desired thickness. Again, you can use the same idea where you use the back of a notebook, or if you use a binding folder or a hardback notebook, that would work great as well, or even an old book that you don't read anymore would work just as well. These are paper covered, so I've just printed this out in high quality thick paper. Not too thick that it would crack, but thick enough. And it is so soft. It is just, I love it. It is so soft. The bookends, or the page ends rather, are just this beautiful cream card that I have. I'm missing two. Oh no, I've only got one book left. I thought I had two. But oh, that's even better. So I've only got the one book left to make it. I forgot that the other one is the A5, but I was hoping that the paper would be here in time, and it's not. So I'm going to just leave that for now, and I will put that together once the fabric arrives. So what I'm going to do is just take one of my signatures, and I'm just going to line it up against my ruler. These ones that are cut are 14.5 by 10 centimeters, which is, hold on, um, 5 3/4 of an inch by 4 1/4 inch roughly. Once they're cut down, at the moment they're a little bit bigger than that, obviously. How cute are these rulers? I absolutely love it. I actually got these for my bookbinding kits that are coming to the shop in March, for my March update, and I just had to have one because they're just too cute. I've got a lot of new goodies coming to the shop in March. Some products will be phased out after the February sale at the moment. And then I will put in new products in March. So I've been a busy little bee trying to get everything else kind of organised for that. So I'm going in 2 centimetres. And then I'm going to flip this over and do the same, because it's kind of like in an awkward place on that side. Hold on. Just going to rub that bit out because it went over the line a touch. So I just need it to be like right there, so I can see it as well though. There we go. I'm sorry if my head gets in the way. I do have to kind of get quite close for this. There we go. I don't know if you can see the little dots or not, but that's what we're working with. I'm going to take my little ruler, and I'm going to take my clip, and I'm going to I don't know why that's got a little bit of pencil on it already, a little pencil mark. So I'm just going to clamp that so that it holds it nice and neatly in place. And then I'm going to have to fix it because it's not quite nice and neatly in place at all. There we go. So I'm taking my smaller ruler for this part, and I will have to get my head in, I'm sorry. And I'm just kind of lining it up to that first dot and using it to make a full line of dots. So hopefully you can see all my dots in alignment there. Now here's where you've got a choice. If you do not have an owl, that's fine, I obviously do, but take your whatever it's called, hold on, your craft knife, and you do want these to be clipped together, like relatively tight. So I would maybe even put one on either side here when doing this. But back in the good old days, they didn't obviously use an owl. What they would do is use a a saw almost, and they would just cut right into it. So you can effectively do the same thing. Take your craft knife and just do a couple of straight lines, and that will knock your holes in for when you're going to sew them. So if you don't have an owl, don't worry, you can obviously still do this. You can use a pin, you can use a sewing needle, you can use all kinds of things, and obviously you need to be able to have a sewing needle to do it. So as long as you've got at least that, you can pop all your holes in. Maybe put a bit of blue tack on the end so you're easier to hold it. But next I'm going to grab my owl, and this is like a piece of packing foam. I really don't know what it's called, but basically it's like thick and almost like compressed bubble wrap, and this is what I like to keep a hold of for punching my signatures into, my holes into. So I just kind of lay it down flat on the top and then poke my holes. So how is everybody doing? I hope you are all doing really well. I would love to know down in the comments if you are currently working on something at the moment. How was your Christmas, your New Year's? Do you celebrate New Year's or Christmas? Or are you still to celebrate New Year's? Or is it like Hanukkah? Or let me know. So I'm just going through each signature. You don't need to clip these in place like a junk journal. You just need them to be nice and flat. And you don't want your holes to be too big either. This is the kind of owl that actually gets thicker as it goes down. So if you've got something similar to that, just try not to go too far down. Just make it a reasonable size that your needle and thread are going to go through it with ease. Again, you don't want to use a needle that's too thick either, because you don't want to weaken the integrity of the spines of the signatures, because you're putting more holes in them than say a junk journal. You want them to be relatively small. The bigger the hole, the more likely it is to rip later on down the line, and obviously we don't want that to happen. Don't know what that is. Pencil mark again. Yeah, so we now have our signatures ready, and once you've done that, just kind of line the back up, make sure everything's still in a line, and then grab your needle and thread. So while I'm binding, I use two different kinds of needles. I use a regular straight needle, but it's a bit longer than just a regular needle, and I also use a curved needle. Like I said, in my journaling kits that are coming out in March, both of these needles are provided. I will show you a sneak peek of that at the end. And then also waxed thread. A linen thread is preferable, but if you don't have that, it's all right. As long as you wax it. A lot of people prefer to wax their own thread. I've got this big one that's already pre-waxed, which I like, but I know a lot of people like to wax their own thread, and that means that they can put wax on any kind of thread. So in the book binding kits, I've actually included a vintage thread along with a beeswax block, so you can do it yourself. Anyway, so because there's 5 signatures, I'm going to just count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 for luck, 6. And then I will just cut it off. I'm going to move all this stuff that I'm not using at the moment out the way. And I like to start off my first signature with the straight needle. I just find it less footery. than the circle one. After my first signature, I then move on to using the circle needle, and then I use that for the remainder of the binding. So just grabbing my first signature, and all you're going to do is do basically a straight stitch all the way from this end to this end, or this end to that end. It really does not matter. So you're just going in and out a straight stitch. And then you're working your way back in the exact same method. Kind of give it a wee tug to make sure everything's nice and secure. And obviously try not to pierce the thread when going through the holes. So try not to like go through the thread, otherwise you won't be able to tighten your thread. It'll kind of just get stuck on that little area. So you want to gently just kind of tighten it as you go. You don't want to obviously pull it too tight and then risk ripping your paper, but you do want it taut. I'm going back in that very first hole. Just going to hold that knot out of the way because it's trying to go in with me. Again, pull it tight, and this is where you're going to tie it off. So I'm just putting the needle underneath. Hold on, I'm going to move this to the side. Underneath this loop here, and then I'm going to pop it through the loop to make my knot, and then just pull it tight, and I'm going to do that twice. And then you want to go back out that same hole and kind of tug it through. And then once you've got it through, what I like to do with each signature is after I've went through it with the thread, I like to go back with my bone folder and just give it a good score to make sure that it's nice and crisp. And I do that with every signature. So again, grabbing my next signature. Oops, and this is where I swap needles. So I grab my curved needle here, and this just makes it easier for getting into the previous stitches. So again, I'm just starting here, and you're basically continuing to do that straight stitch all the way down. The only thing you're going to do is between each stitch, if I can get a hold of this blooming needle, you're going to obviously pull it tight. So whenever you come back out onto the spine, give it a good old tug and make sure it's all lined up. And then you're going to go under your thread here and up the next one on either side of this hole where you've sewn previously, and then you're going back into the same hole you came out of. All right, so you're not moving over to the next hole, you're going right back in where you came from. And again, try not to pierce the thread. And then again, give it a good tug. And you should only be able to see like a little loop here. Then you're going to go back over onto the next hole. And again, pull tight, back down underneath that first, the left side or the right side, it really doesn't matter. And then up. Obviously, again, you're trying not to pierce the thread. So sometimes it's easier just to kind of lift it with your nail and then pop the needle underneath. Because obviously they're going to be quite tight as well. Again, pull it tight, back in through the same hole you came out of. And as you can see, this is still quite loose, so you want to tighten it up. And then you're just going to repeat that until you get to the end. Obviously, the larger your signature, the more holes you'll have. So again, back underneath and back up. So I feel that the curved needle really helps with this, but especially in the next couple of rows when you're actually going through a little bit differently. So again, just tugging it tight into the last hole, and this time you're obviously only going to be able to go down the last one. That's fine. You obviously have nowhere else to go, so you just tug tight. And again, I take my bone folder and just press that down nice and neatly, and then grab my next signature. So you're going straight up into the first hole, and again repeating the exact same steps, going straight across to the next hole. And once you're outside at the spine again, pull tight. And this time what you're going to do is, instead of going up and down through this, you're literally going to loop it around the previous stitch. So as you can see the stitches here. So I'm literally going to bring this in and around and out. I need to check because there's thread obviously in the way there as well. So you can just pop that out the road. But yeah, so I'm taking it back out through that same loop, and it's basically just going to loop round the thread that you put in the previous signature. And again, pull tight, and you're going back in the same hole. So obviously you can do it the way I just did it, and then if you're going to do it that way, a straight needle would work just fine, where if you're lifting up pages and looping it through that way. However, I find it much easier and quicker to just loop it round from this side. So what I do is I take the needle and I just feed it above. You don't want to go underneath this thread from the first signature, so you're going above that, and you're just kind of feeding it into the signature below, and then you just kind of pull it round, and again it's went underneath that thread, so I'm just going to lift it over that. And I don't know if you can see, but I've now got this going around this middle hole here, and that will then loop through and around that thread like so. And then I'm going back into the hole I came out of, and again pull tight, and then back at the next hole and do the exact same thing. I'm all fingers and thumbs today. So again, above that first thread, you don't want to go underneath that, and then we're bringing it right round. I'm holding that thread out of the way again because it's determined to catch it. And again, doing the exact same thing. Like I said, if you want to do it the other way, you can. There's no rule. There's no right or wrong way. I just find this way quicker and more efficient for myself. So I just prefer it. But you can very much do the other way and it will turn out exactly the same. So out the last hole, and again you're just going to loop that through that last thread piece there and pull tight. And then again, taking my bone folder, I'm just going to kind of straighten that out and then do the same again. So once you reach the final hole, you're going to finish it the exact same way. You're just going to put it through that final loop. Pull tight, and then you're going to go back in through the final hole, sorry. And again, pull tight and pull it off your needle, because why not? And then you're going to finish it just the same way you started it. So you're going to slip it underneath and that last piece of thread there and tie it onto a knot. Again, I like to do 2 knots. And then, yeah, again, you're going to bring it back out that hole. Again, try not to pierce the thread. And then give it a good old tug. There we go, until it pops through. And then again, I'm just going to take my bone folder and straighten that down. And then I like to grab my straight needle one last time. If it will allow me. There we go. And I then take it back down to the first thread, and I like to loop it through that twice. And this time I actually attempt to catch the thread so that it kind of grabs hold of it as well. And then I cut off the excess. Grab my little clip again. And then I'm going to use my binding tape. And I don't want it to cover the whole thing because obviously I am going to be cutting it down. So I just want to get it kind of roughly where the thread is. And really not much further beyond that. So I'm literally just putting it right on the edge there. And then I'm going to push it down into the spine and then round on to the other bit. And then I'm going to go take this to my paper trimmer and I'm going to trim off the edges. There we go. I would record doing that, but it's under my bed on the floor because it's heavy. It's a heavy one. So now I'm going to take my end papers, which really I should have done first. Oh my gosh, Lordy, really? Right, hold on. head full of pudding. I'm just going to go in with the 3-in-1 beacon glue. It's like Fabri-Tac basically. And I'm going to glue my end papers on. Oh my days. So I'm literally just going to put maybe half a centimetre of glue right along the folded edge of my end paper. And then I'm going to line it up with the edge of my page because I'm a Dumbo and I forgot to do this before cutting it down. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So I'm going to need to take my little knifey knife out. That way. So what I'm going to do is take a little bit of that glue again, and I've just cut this ribbon down to a size that will fit as a bookmark, and then I've just singed the edges with my lighter just so it doesn't fray. So I'm just going to pop that on the spine, and then I'm going to grab another couple of, well, 3 more strips of my binding tape. This comes in the binding kit as well. Love this stuff. It knocks out a step, or for a few steps for having to obviously glue your spine. Normally you would go over the spine with glue, let it dry, go over it with glue again, let it dry, add these with your glue, and then you would have to put like a piece of card or something over that just to hold it in place. So what I like to do is use the tape instead of glue, and it just eliminates so much work. And, well, not so much work, but waiting time. So you don't have to sit and wait and press your book in between while it's drying, essentially. It just removes all of that footy nonsense and you're just ready to go. So I'm going to put that to the side now and grab my cover and pop that away before I have an accident. Okay, so for my cover, I like to take the book board, obviously, and what I like to do is I'll place it over my front image, because obviously if I put this on the back, there's a chance that it's going to be like here and you're going to miss half of it, or here and you're going to miss half of it, or too high or too low. So what I like to do is I take my book board, cover up the image, make sure it's straight, and then I just take this is a crochet needle. You could take your bone folder as well, but I just feel like this gets right in the nooks a little bit better than, say, my bone folder would. and I just score it, and then I go in and fold. Where is that one? I went too far. There we go. And I fold right along those lines. Making sure that it's nice and straight. And then I also like to, I don't want to score on this side because you might see it. However, I obviously want to have a perfect little nook to pop this into. So I then take it back down and just kind of fold it there. And I now have a perfect placement for my board. And that's where that will glue. So I'm just going to go back in with my 3-in-1, and I'm just going to put a healthy dose of glue all the way along here. Like, I want this to hold for 1,000 years and then some. So I'm making sure that I add plenty of glue everywhere. And then I will go in and line it up with all my little lines, and then I will flip it over and take my bone folder and give it a really nice rub down. And then I take my spine and pop that right next to it. Obviously you want to leave a little gap between your spine and your side pieces, so your front and back cover. You don't want them to be right next to each other, otherwise you're not going to be able to close it or open it properly. It'll just rip and shred and just all those horrible things that nobody wants to happen to your book. So what I like to do is I'll line it up at the top and the bottom, and I put it really close, not too close, but close enough that I know it's too close. And then I take my bone folder and I push it all the way down. And I know that if it's too close, my bone folder will automatically push it out, but it will be straight because I'm using the edge of this as my guide. Now, obviously this only works if it's a true bone folder. If it's a plastic one, they're a lot thicker. I don't even have one at hand to show you, but they are a lot thicker. So I wouldn't recommend doing it with a plastic bone folder, but you could do it with the edge of your scissors maybe. Just very gently take them down just to get that little thin gap. And then do the same with the back cover. So again, I'm just lining it up with those top and bottom folds, and then I'm going to take my bone folder, and now I'm going to use the spine as my straight line, and that is pretty much the exact amount of space that you need. You don't need a ridiculous amount of space between your spine and your notebook, basically your spine and your boards, but you do need a decent amount. So now I'm going to take my bone folder and I'm going to fold. Actually, what I'm going to do is just give that a good old rub down, make sure it's nice and neat, no bubbles or anything. And then I'm just going to go around the edge and press my bone folder just to help kind of crease all those edges, so that when it comes to gluing them down, it's a lot easier. I have seen a few people use double-sided tape for paper covers. I personally have never done it. I don't know how effective it is, but I have seen people do it. So I can't really give you like advice on how it would work or how long it lasts or anything like that. I have no idea. But I have seen it done I think Natasha from Treasure Books does it sometimes, and oh, I have no idea, but I've definitely seen a few people do it. So now that you've got that all done, you've now actually can see roughly where you need to cut your corners out. So I'm just going down until I get to the point, and then back up. And I'm just going to do that to make all my tabs. And there we go. So yeah, I have seen people use double-sided tape. So if you can't obviously get a hold of glue, and all you have is double-sided tape, you can definitely use that. A little tea break. It is iced tea, so it will last a lot longer for me than my normal tea, because it will not cool down, which always happens to me. I'm going to cut this edge off because it is doing my nothing. It is just not coming out fast enough for me, and I have no idea where that little bit went. Oh, there it is. Yeah, it's not coming out fast enough for me. I've not got the patience for it. I actually usually use my Uhu glue, but it's run out and I can't access my tubes, like my spares that I have, or backups at the moment, because I'm kind of trying to reorganise, rejiggery pokery my craft stuff, and it's everywhere. Well, it's not everywhere, but it's kind of piled up in one corner, a lot of it. So I'm just kind of scoring the very edge of that and making sure that it is right up against the book board. And then I'm also going to use the heat of my hands to just kind of make sure that that's down nice and tight, not going anywhere. And then I will go and do the other side. So, do any of you use a bullet journal? If you do, what do you use it for? Is it like daily stuff, business? What are your pages like? I'd love to know if you have any advice or ideas for spreads. I'm probably going to keep it very minimalist. I had tried a bullet journal in the past, and it was just so much to do, and each page, each spread, I had like task lists, habit tracker. It was just a lot for someone who's never done it to follow and keep up with on the daily basis, and I ended up just falling away from it. And it was just like, oh, I've missed yesterday, so I'll need to do that today. And then it was like, I've missed the last 3 days. Oh, and it just kind of piled up gradually to the point where I was like, I'm not doing it now. I'm just going to leave it. So I would obviously not want that to happen this time. So what I'm going to do is just keep it very minimal and just the basics essentially, and the necessities that I need, so that I'm able to keep track of my days. And so I have no idea when that cut out. I am so sorry. I've finished putting the cover on the cover together. I'm so sorry. I had no idea that I'd stopped filming. I literally went to pause it to let this dry for a minute, and it wasn't even playing. So I'm really sorry. Hopefully you didn't miss too much. But I'm going to now go in and glue down the cover. So obviously this is the bottom here and this is the top. So I'm just going to make sure that that is correct. And one thing that I like to do is just kind of randomly kind of fold the spine back and forth, just to kind of get it moving and just free it up so it's not too stiff. So just making sure that it's all in the right place. And okay, so what I'm going to do first actually before I forget is attach my elastic. So I'm just going to cut that off there. And just like ribbon, elastic needs to be sealed with fire. So I'm just taking my lighter and rubbing it over and double checking that I'm actually filming. So then I'm just going to kind of fold down these edges and kind of place them where I think they should, where they'll fit, and then that way I know where to put them. So I need to make this all, so that'll go there, and that'll go there. Okay. And then I'm going to go back into my trusty binding tape and cut off 2 lengths of that. And I'm going to try and keep it more to this side than that side because I don't want it to accidentally be peeking through the end papers. But obviously I want it to reinforce that glue so it's not going to accidentally pull out or come loose. It's got that extra fortification. And then I'm just going to take my one folder and give it a good old score. Make sure it's well adhered. And then I'm going to double check. Add my glue. I'm just kind of making sure it's all lined up where it's supposed to be. And then place it down. And grab my one folder. And I'm going to just make sure it's all nice and straight. And give that a good old score. And this should be dry now, so I'm just going to take it and flip it over the back. And then add my glue here as well. I'm just making sure that that's well scored in. And there we go. There we go. And I do sell book corners in my shop, which is always linked below. And obviously everything in the shop was on sale for the rest of the month of February. So absolutely everything is on sale. Up to 50% off. Things that are 50% off are not coming back to the shop. And then obviously we have our shop update in March, which is when this will be released. So I'm not even adding glue to these because you don't need to. Once you've kind of clipped them in place, they should stay there indefinitely. Put this back around actually. Yeah, that's better. Also have new notebooks, soft cover notebooks coming to the shop for Mother's Day. So they'll be out in March as well. Just regular lined notebooks. There is 2 different designs that I've done for the covers and the inside cover. I'll show you them in a second as well actually. So again, A6 in size, slightly smaller actually than the hardbacks, but on this one I've just put the world's greatest mum, and then on this one I've written a little poem. Mums are angels made of love, sent from heaven and God above, a gift to you upon your birth, to see you safe, to guide you safely through this earth. So yeah, those will be available in March in preparation for Mother's Day. And I really love how they turned out. But yeah, here is our finished bullet journal. And I hope you enjoyed coming along with me as I made it. And I hope that you will enjoy using it should you buy one. Don't forget to let me know down below what your favourite size of traveller's notebook is and what you use it for, and any tips you may have for me I would very much appreciate. Let me know if you would like me to come back on and bind the larger books with you, if that's something you are interested in. I can definitely do that as well. But yeah, hopefully this is me back on track and I will hopefully be releasing videos again consistently on a Tuesday and Friday. Tuesday and Thursday, sorry. But yeah, I hope you're all well. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. And say hi down in the comments. If you made it this far, leave a little book emoji in the comments so I know. And I will see you all next time. Take care and God bless. Bye.